In this video, I'm going to show you how to use lab.js to administer Likert scales. These scales are common within psychology, and you can use lab.js to administer and collect data from your participants. So the first thing I'm going to do is come here like so, and I'm going to click on page, and I'm going to click the plus button down here, and I'm going to choose Likert scale. Next, I'm going to enter in this specific example. So I'm going to be using the example of the 10 item scale of the perceived stress scale. So I'm going to start off by copying the various things in, such as the question. So Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Okay, then I'm going to go through systematically and copy each one of the items in here. You will notice as soon as I copy and paste an item in here, you will find that it automatically adds another item underneath. Okay, we've got the 10 items in here. So what I need to do now is I need to tell lab.js the name of the variable that will appear in the data set. So I'm going to call this PS1. PS2. Okay, so that is a basic Likert scale setup. I'm just going to add another component so I can download the data. To do that, I will go plus, click here, data transmission. Needs to do is to come over to here like so. Tell it that I want a 5-point Likert scale. Because if you look here, we've got 0 to 4, so that 5 Likert points, and you can see that it starts with a 0 as never, 1 as almost never, 2 as sometimes, and 3 as fairly often, 4 as very often. So what I'm going to do is, so I've just copied and pasted those in there. Okay, I'm going to give it a shortened name, and I'm going to go for PSS. And I'm going to tell it that answers are required. So now, when I run this, you'll see that you've got answers at the top. And if I just go down here and choose all the answers, and then click to download data, you can see that it gives us a score for each of them. So we've got PS1, PS10, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, PS6, PS7, PS8, PS9. And then we could copy that into SPSS, reverse code the ones that would need to be reverse coded, and then create a total score. However, what might be more useful is if we have the ability to get the lab.js to do it for us. So to do that, we have to write a bit of code. And the first thing that I want to point out is if you look on here, the ones I've highlighted are the ones which are the ones that need reverse coding. So to do that, you would do the following. So if you look here, you can see that number 4, which is in the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to cope with to handle your personal problems? In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? And in the last month, how often have you felt you're on top of things? You can see that they're all positive items, so the lower someone scores, the more stressed they are. So we need to tell lab.js this. So the way we would do this is we write a bit of a script. So we'd go onto the scripting tab, and we'd put the following code in. You can see that we have this data, which is a way of telling lab.js to use this variable, .rsp4, which just stands for reverse perceived stress, equals 6, take away this data, and then it's the value that we got for this that you've entered there. So this creates a new variable to work with, and this tells lab.js to take 6 and to take away the value that they were given. So the reason why it's 6 is if I just show you here. So if you're reverse scoring something, you would give an original score of say 1, and if you were reverse scoring that, that would become a 5. With a 2, that would become a 4, 3 would become a 3, 4 would become a 2, and 5 would become a 1. And if you add all of those up, you get a 6. So if you ever want to work out what the reverse score should be, you just need to take the original score they would have got away from the total score, and it gives you that. So what we're doing is we're getting 6, we're taking away the score that they originally said, is we want to then go and use that to go and generate a total score. If I go and paste them like so, what we're doing now is we're just saying create a variable called PSS total and add all these variables together, and the exception to this is where I've reverse scored something, I've used the newly reverse scored variable instead of the original variable. So for example, because variable 4 was reverse scored, I'd put in the reverse score here. And one thing you'll notice is at the end I've taken away 10, and that's because by default you will see it scores it on a 1 to 5 scale, not on a 0 to 4. So what we now need to do is go and run this, and I will show you what happens. So one final thing to just show you before we run is ideally you want to set it to end. So this means that this script will run just at the end of someone completing the Likert scale. So I'm going to hit play, I'm going to hit run. And now when it comes to downloading the data, you can now see that we've got these scores here. We've also got these scores here, which are the reverse scores. And because I answered all 5s, they've all become 1s. And then what you can see is that we should have a total score, which is there. And you can see our total score, which is the scores added together, is 28. So the final thing you might want to be able to do is go and tell participants how they did. So what you can do is add a screen to say what their score was. So let's go here, let's go plus, and let's go and say your score was, and then if we add another box here as well, and then because the score changes, you need to use a bit of code to do this. So the bit of code we use is this. So the bit of code we use is this. So whenever we reference something that varies, so something that changes, we put it in strange looking brackets and we say state dot PSS total and then close the brackets. Okay. So what that tells lab.js is to present variable rather than present words. Okay, so now if we run it, you'll see that it still doesn't work, but I will explain why. And you can see that at the moment it doesn't present a score, and that's because when this sketchpad was, so lab.js prepares everything at the beginning of the experiment, and because it prepares everything at the beginning of the experiment, it means that it's not yet prepared a score. So if you go onto here and then go onto behavior and then go on to set the response to be tardy, which I think is a horrible American term, but it basically means that it will prepare this the image or the canvas at the last possible moment. So if you do that, and then we go here, you will see that we get a score of 24. And that's how you can create and administer Likert scales using lab.js.